And a standard is not this. Why, if I can just do better than I did last year, I'm good. That is not a standard. That's a concept. Remember, if your goals are not clearly defined, the brain hates ambiguity. It can't problem solve it. Hi, this is Coach Joe Lucas, and welcome to the Magellan Network Show. My goal inside of this communication, this show, is to share with you my nearly 30 years of coaching some of the most successful financial advisors in North America. We're going to be talking about strategies, syntaxes. We're going to be bringing guests on from time to time, and I'm going to share with you what's working now. So think of this show as sort of like a little one-on-one kind of mini coaching cast, if you like, where we're going to be going in depth from time to time on strategies to help you grow your business, get more effective, become more efficient, find balance in your time management, grow your business, and quite frankly, whatever else is going on in the world today. So before we get to today's episode, I'd love for you to do a couple things for me. Number one, make sure that if you're watching this on YouTube, that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're doing the audio, make sure that you give us a review on whether it's Spotify or Apple. We'd really appreciate that. And quite frankly, that does help. It does matter when you rate things and like things and subscribe to things. It helps us get the word out to more of the industry. And lastly, I have a very special gift for you. Go to MagellanNetwork.net, so one word, MagellanNetwork.net, and I have for you a complimentary membership, 100% gratis, where you can tap into about between 50 and 75 hours of masterclasses, forms, tools, templates, and strategies. So please go ahead and make sure you go ahead and get that claimed. Smash the like button and subscribe. And please go ahead and leave us a review on whatever podcasting platform you're on. And now, let's get to this week's episode. Hi, it's your coach, Joe Lucas, and welcome to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Here we are, we're barreling really towards the end of January 2024, and I want to continue our conversation with strategies, how to have a great 2024. So if you watched our first one in this series, which we kicked off, I think 20 or 21 different strategies over the next several weeks, probably even several months, we're going to take one of those strategies and kind of break it apart, get some strong deliverables for you guys, and give you actionable items, actionable strategy you can take into the field today, right, and have a result. So one of the things when I'm working with an advisor, and we're talking about growth, which is, if you're listening or watching me, that's why we're here, right? One element that we talk about are standards. Like, what are your standards? So what I'm going to do, in our time today, this week, is kind of give you a sense of what areas I think standards make sense. Maybe give you an idea of what I think they need to be. Again, everybody's situation is different, so I'm going to preface that right now. Everybody's in a different path. There's so many different iterations of our business. But really to make the case why this matters, okay? So if you think about standards, like what's a standard? A standard really is an expectation. Here are my expectations of myself, my business, my team, whatever, right? That's a standard, right? Here's what we're going to hold ourselves to. It's a way to compare an action, right, to a threshold, okay? So for an advisor, there are different standards, right? So like one of the standards, and again, I'm going to give you stuff that we can take today out there. So one of the first standards that we're going to talk about is, hey, what's your morning standards? So what time do you get up? How do you get up? What do you do? What's your ritual? Right? All those things. A lot of you have a standard that is okay but not great. I always hear this. Hey, if you could magically pick the time to get up in the morning that would give you the best opportunity to have a great day, most advisors would need to get up probably about 30 to 60 minutes earlier, right? Because, oh man, if I just get up at 5 o'clock, Well, why don't you, right? Well, then we get into the other standard. Well, what is your standard for lights out every night, right? Like, these things matter. Because if you're saying, oh, I want to wake up earlier so I have more time to prepare for the day, but you're up till 12 o'clock, it's not going to happen. Why? Because the standards are wrong. So the first two standards I want you to really look at is my lights out time and my lights on time in the morning, right? Are you giving yourself enough time to prep to be excellent? And we're going to talk about morning rituals at some point. Like, I'll share this in a little bit. But what do those two standards look like? Okay, next. What are your standards in terms of your energies? So in our game, we have three energies: our physical energy, our mental energy, and our emotional energy. So in a previous discussion, we talked about this in one of the episodes, and we talked about that in order to have a ton of mental and emotional energy, we need to have a reservoir or high levels of physical energy. So in other words, we have to be fit, we have to be healthy. Okay? That's a standard. What you put in your mouth, that's a standard. Your commitment to exercising your body, that's a standard. And why does that matter? Because if you look, again, we're drawing a pyramid, you're watching me on YouTube, we're drawing a pyramid here, or I'm using my hands are drawing it actually. What is mental energy? Like, what does that matter? Like, how do you define that, Joe? Mental energy is critical thinking and problem solving. That's mental energy. Emotional energy is influence. How you lead yourself, how you lead your clients, your team, your prospects. It's influence. Emotional energy, influence is a transfer of energy, assuming you have it to begin with, right? And just think about your career for a second. Maybe you went to hear a speaker, or they brought, if you're in the game where you have a wholesaler come in your office, stuff like that. How many times is somebody in front of you, and you're like, within 2 minutes, you were just bored to tears because the person was boring, because they brought no energy to the conversation? Hi, Coach Joe Lukacs here, and I'm just breaking here for a moment just to do a couple quick reminders. Number one, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel or our podcast. In addition, please leave a comment or a review. Those things really, really matter. And share this episode with 3 of your colleagues inside the financial services space. And lastly, make sure that you go ahead and claim your free membership inside of Magellan Network. Now back to this week's episode. Right? That's why energy matters. So that's a standard. And so the secret of economic growth in our game, you raise standards first, and then your bank account rises. Okay? So we have that. What are the standards we need to look at? Well, I talk about the big 3. Number 1, what are your daily standards in how many times you're going to communicate with a human being? Client, prospect, COI, team member, it doesn't matter. We are in the people, communication, influence business. So if you do not have a standard on a minimum of what you're going to do every day, then you're going to float. Bottom line. We're barreling on my 30th anniversary pretty soon. If I ask an advisor, hey, what is your minimum standard for contacts today in a typical business day? I get usually blank stares. Well, I don't know. I haven't thought about that, right? But that's standard. What's the next standard? How many meetings are being set? Now, again, whether you're setting them, you have staff, it doesn't matter. I don't care who's doing the activity in your business or on your team. What I care about is the activities getting done. Okay? So again, what's your standard there? And then the third standard, the big 3, right? Third of the big 3 is how many introduction conversations are we going to have today? Okay? Now, if you're leading a team of advisors, and some of you are, same protocol. What is our standard? I mean, you go to your team advisors, your junior advisors, whatever. Hey, what are our standards? What do we need to do? Right? Because if you're leading a team and you're not happy with the performance of that team, do they know what the rules of the game are? And the rules of the game are standards. And you can't have them implied. They have to be explicit. Well, they know what I mean. No, they don't. Okay? So I've got what time we go to bed, what time we get up, big 3. Got 5 so far, right? What's next? What you expect from yourself. So for example, we'll talk about the big 2, right? Top line rev growth, right? And new money, right? Because that's what makes our world go around. It's interesting when I ask an advisor, I'll say, what is your standard around new money? Not net new, that's a whole different conversation, but attracting assets, what's your standard? Well, what do you mean, Joe? I said, well, what do you expect every year? And I'll get a number, and I'll say, well, how do you arrive at that number? I don't know, just what we've done, right? So that's not a standard. That's a report of something that's already occurred. And I remember I was talking to a very large OSJ leadership, and we were talking about annual planning. And I said, what is the standard of new money? Again, I didn't say net new. What do you expect out of your advisors? I think there's like 80 of them in the organization. What's the expectation? And they really looked, and this leadership team, we're on Zoom, right? And they're all looking at each other, and they're looking at me, and I said, yes, it's a challenge. There's no standard, right? And then same thing with top line rev. So whether, again, you're leading yourself, your partners in an organization, or you're leading a team of advisors, the same rule applies. If you don't know what your standards are, explicitly, why the heck should your team know what they are? It's about standards, right? So that's what I want you to really explore before we get too far into 2024 is, do I have the right standard in sleep? Lights out. Do I have the right standard in getting up? Do I have the right standard in terms of contacts every day, of meeting set, of introduction conversations? What are my standards in terms of asset growth? What are my standards in terms of revenue growth? Right? And a standard is not this. Why, if I can just do better than I did last year, I'm good. That's not a standard. That's a concept. Remember, if your goals are not clearly defined, the brain hates ambiguity. It can't problem solve it, right? So, give you an example. If one advisor's approach is, I want to grow my business this year. I just want to do better than I did last year. The brain searches for, and you ask yourself, what do I need to do? It's unclear. But if a second advisor goes, hey, what I want to do this year is I want to bolt on between $8 and $12 million of new money, and I want to bolt on between 12 and 18 new relationships, because those are my standards. The mind can process that. Why? It's clear. And a lot of advisors, I find this fascinating in my work. A lot of advisors are just so nebulous on how they articulate what they want to do that the brain is not their ally. And I'll just say this. This is one of my biggest breakthroughs last year. The more precise and clear you can get to what you want to create, and then feed it to your mind. So how do you feed it? Question. Like the example. Hey, how am I gonna bring in $8 to $12 million of advisory money this year? How am I gonna grow my revenue stream by a minimum of 100,000, whatever the number is, right? But it's clear. The first time you ask yourself that, you may, I don't know. But every morning, if you ask of your mind, i.e. your brain, questions, it will problem solve for you. This is my thing. I had a goal, and I had no idea how to accomplish the goal. But the goal was clearly defined. It doesn't matter what the goal is. For about 60 days in the morning, I asked, how am I going to pull off X? I got nothing back. I don't know. But I wanted the goal. Day 61, 62, a little thought. Well, how about this? Next day, a little distinction. How about that? And over the course of a week, I have it on a whiteboard now. Here's how I'm going to pull off X. Y. Clearly defined, Kept Q&Aing myself every morning. Let my brain, which is the most beautiful machine computer known ever made, will be your ally if you let it. But if you give it like garbage inputs, you're going to get garbage outputs, just like anything. Okay? So standards. That is what we want to talk about today. So that's what I want you to take out of our conversation, right? Bedtime, morning, the big three. Getting super clear on your standards. Don't leave it vague. More better is not a standard. Okay? And then go ahead and execute this. Now, real quick, before we get out of here for the week. We have some new master classes we have posted inside Magellan Network. A brand new morning ritual masterclass. A brand new strategic calendar masterclass. These are gratis. All you need to do, if you're a member already, and again, we post this to our membership too, you will find them in the basic program, right? It's right there in the masterclass section. If you're not in our program, which by again, the basic is free, there's no gotcha, no credit card, nothing like that. Just go to MagellanNetwork.net, answer some questions truthfully, create your account. You'll have them like that. Okay? Remember, we're almost done with January. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening or watching this version of the Magellan Network, or episode of the Magellan Network Show. And I will see you all again next Friday. So have a great weekend, and we're out. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the Magellan Network Show. Hey, if any of this resonated with you, I invite you to come to MagellanNetwork.net, and we have a powerful group coaching community of like-minded advisors. Come in for a trial. You and I will have a one-on-one conversation. Let's see if I can help elevate your game both personally and professionally.